बोलिए Satguru Maharaj ki jai, Sache Darbar ki jai. So as you all know that for the past few weeks, we have been going over the how many vices? Five vices. So we've gone through how desire plays a role in hindering us from fulfilling the spiritual growth. How anger creates a baggage, creates a big mountain in front of us from getting us to our goal. Greed, as we succumb to greed, we lose sight of what is right, of what is wrong. And attachment. Attachments is what keeps us bound to this earth, that forces us to come back over and over again to suffer in this cycle of birth and death. And today we get to the strongest one, the fifth vice, which is ego. So I'll turn you over to Sister Sonu for today's satsang.
So let's start with hailing victory to our Lord. Boliye Shri Satguru Maharaj ki, Sache Darbar ki. Today I'm going to attempt to share some of the things that I've spent a few weeks learning about. When Sister Bhavya told me that she would like me to do a little satsang on ego, I was like, this is a topic that, it seems easy. You know, what is ego? Very often we say, oh yeah, someone who's so arrogant and too proud of themselves, that's ego. And as simple as that may sound, there is so many layers to ego that we may not be aware of. So I spent some time listening to a few audiobooks. I try to do my own research on what ego might mean. What does it mean in our spiritual path? And why is it considered such a bad thing? So what is ego? In layman terms, ego is the I. Ego is the sense of self. How do we view ourselves? It's usually connected to our need to feel important. It's connected to our personal abilities. And that's how we define ourselves. That's how we identify ourselves. This body, this person, me, I, that is, in layman terms, the definition of ego. So the way one perceives themselves. The acronym EGO stands for edging God out. Oh, that sounds really bad when I say it out loud. Edging God out. But many times, unknowingly, this is what humans do. So we try to tell God, you know what? Take the back seat. I got this. I got this promotion because I worked hard. Did you see the match last night? We won because I scored that goal. I am giving my dog the best life he could ever ask for. It's always the I. Never once do we stop and think, hold on a second. Are we as humans really that capable of being the reason for someone else's happiness or sorrow? Being the reason to hold what somebody else deserves? Who are we to tell someone what they deserve? Or who are we to think that we are the ones, we are the doers? So we often put God aside. And maybe not intentionally. But if you stop and slow down a little bit, you may find yourself catching yourself in those small moments where you have forgotten to give credit to who is providing. For example, we often do good deeds, right? We all are here, one, because we are looking for some spiritual growth. We are trying to better ourselves as human beings, right? We are trying to walk the path to line up with the teachings of Sri Ashutosh Maharaj and all the other saints and sages that existed. But we don't stop to realize we are just a vessel, right? We look at our kids. Oh, I work hard because I want to provide them with the best life. I want them to go and be able to get the best education in any university they want. But really, it is God who decides what they are deserving of. It is God who decides what they will get. And we are just the mere vessel to provide. So, yes, it's great that God thinks we're worthy of providing this action, but the thought comes from Him. If we look at our pets, I know most of you know I have a little dog at home, Diesel, and I often look at him and I say, you know what? Wow, he's so lucky. He gets to walk around the house, eat the best food, take as many naps a day as he wants. He's so loved when the family is over. But who are we to provide that for him? Who are we to decide that that's what he gets? We are merely just a vessel. But just to remind a little bit, to get to that recognition of interconnectedness with God, or to get to that level where we understand that it is not the I that is doing, there's so many other layers. So if we take a look at our scriptures and what we hear out in society, in the norms, why is ego considered such a negative trait? What is it about ego? As soon as you say, you're like, oh yeah, that's not me. I don't have a big ego. So according to Sigmund Freud, who's a neurologist and has been a child psychologist in the past, he explained ego as the psyche of our mind to have the need of being important. That if we feel there is no motive to our existence, then we are disappointed. When we feel or experience situations where our expectations are unmet, then we are disappointed. He explains ego, the I, as a mediator between the id and the superego. Now, these may seem like big words from a psychologist or neurologist, but in simple terms, the id is our impulses, our urges, our feeling of need, almost like that negative voice you have in your head sometimes. And then the superego is our morality. What's good, what's bad, what's right, what's wrong. And often the I is bouncing between the two. Oh yeah, you know what? I don't like him. Oh, that's not a good thought. So we always have these two voices in us, right? We often tell the kids, listen to the good voice, make a good choice, right? But these two voices exist in all of us. So the I spends so much time mediating between the id and the superego, mediating between our impulses, urges, our needs, all the vices that we've been speaking about for the past few weeks, and what's right and wrong, that we forget there is something that's greater than the self, that the self is greater than this I. But what is that self? So our scriptures say that the goal is to transcend from the I, from the ego, to a state where nor do you exist, nor do I, or we both exist. So I am the Lord, and the Lord is me. I am that divine, and the divine is me. When there is no barrier between those two, is when we can say, you know what, we have overcome the vice ego. Ego is a huge blanket. Under ego comes all these vices that we speak about. Anger, help me out, guys. Greed, attachment, jealousy, thanks, Pate, desire. So when these four vices are unmet, our ego is hurt, right? Ego is so subtle that sometimes certain thoughts that we have during the day, we may not think is a job of the I. For example, my sisters can tell you I was so nervous about sitting in front of you and presenting my thoughts today. And my younger sister goes, you know what? Stop it. There is no judgment. If there's anywhere you could share your thoughts, this is it. But even worrying about something is a game of the ego, believe it or not. So this morning, I thought I'd stop and you know what? I'm going to try to recognize those small thoughts that we have, but maybe the play of the ego, maybe the play of the I. And this was one of the thoughts. All morning, I was worried about this satsang. But even worrying about the future is ego. Someone may ask, how so? You're just worried because you want to do a good job. You know, you don't want to let Sister Bhavya down and your guru. So how is that a part of ego? Well, what do people worry about? If you were to go into a crowd and share a few thoughts, what could be the worry? I hope I don't make a mistake. I hope I remember everything I prepared. I hope no one laughs at what I said. I hope no one judges me. It's all about me, I, and how I would feel about it. That is how subtle ego is. I'm going to bring it back to our scriptures. So in Christianity, very nicely, Lord Jesus explains in Matthew 43:2-1 that whoever exalts themselves will be humbled, and whoever is humble will be exalted. So very clearly you can see that there is a shame given to pride. There's discouragement when it comes to pride. But on the other hand, there's also a cry. There's also a call for humility. That the world today lacks humility. We may think we are humble people, but maybe we do a self-analysis and think about what are those moments when we practice humility. One may make themselves feel really good by watching themselves succeed amongst other people, looking down at somebody. But Lord Jesus explained, those who bring themselves up with pride will eventually be brought down low. But the ones who stay low, stay humble, stay grounded, they're adaptable, and are usually met with that happiness and are always recognized for the good. If you take a look at Hinduism, ego is described by the word ahamkara, the misidentification of ourself, the misidentification of this physical body and mind. Even our scriptures tell us that is not who you are. this I, this me, the things that we attach ourselves to, is not our true form. But yet it's so hard to separate those two. We have feelings, we have thoughts, we're hurt, we're happy. But all these emotions are another form or another way of seeing that our vices are evident. So Lord Krishna explains to Arjuna that those who bring themselves up by helping others, by being that stepping stone for someone else to do good, and take no credit of someone else's success, are the ones who will eventually transcend this ego into the connection with the divine. So the goal is to recognize that interconnectedness with the divine. The goal is to recognize that I am not me. I am that light, and that light is me. There's a little story about a sage who lived in a quiet village between some rolling hills in the mountains. And a man by the name of Arjun went to visit the sage. A lot of people from the village would go visit him, usually present their challenges in life, and he would give them some sort of spiritual advice to better themselves or their situation. So Arjun goes to visit the sage and he says, "You know what? I always feel like I need to prove myself. I always feel like I just need to be the best. I want others to see that I'm good. Like I'm a nice person. I do good. But yet, when anyone recognizes that, it still leaves me feeling very empty." So the sage, listens intently and he says, "I'll share a story with you. Once there was a flower, a beautiful flower, standing tall, growing nicely. The colors of the petals were so exuberant, and really pleasant for the eye. And around this plant, around these flowers, were other flowers as well. There were daisies, there were shrubs, there were some weeds. And the garden is growing very nicely. And he says, this flower thought, you know what? I am so beautiful. He looks down on the other flowers, looks down on the other plants, says, no one is growing as tall as me. I feel really good about myself. As the seasons change, they're met with a stormy night. The winds are going, the rain is coming down hard, and this plant, this flower, could not bear the strength of the winds. As it was so tall and high, the stem was weaker, so it falls over. Meanwhile, the other shrubs, the humble daisies, the weeds that were in the garden, they also swayed due to the winds, but they still survived. They didn't fall over. Now this flower finds itself in a new position. Oh man, my pride, my beautiful petals, it wasn't able to protect me from this storm. Meanwhile, he looks around at the shrubs and the daisies and the other flowers, that they were able to adapt and stay strong through the winds as they kept themselves grounded. They kept themselves low. So Arjun listens to the story and he goes, well, yeah, that's great. Well, that flower was stupid. Like, come on. Why would you think you're better than the others? What does this mean for me? How does this affect what my situation is? So the sage says that this is exactly what the I is. This is exactly what the ego is. You want to excel. You want to succeed. But your accomplishment is based on somebody else, is compared to someone else. And if you don't feel like you're better than them, there is disappointment, there is suffering. That's what leads to suffering. So Arjun kind of understands, like, yeah, I really need to work on myself, need to work on this ego, I need to recognize. So he walks pondering on the thought of humility. And he says, I'm going to intentionally try to practice being a little bit more humble. And he goes off on his way. Practice being more humble. And then that strikes something in my mind. How do we do that? What do they mean by practice being more humble? I'm humble. I'm very nice to everybody. I smile all the time. But is that really what being humble means? Is that all that being humble means? In Buddhism, ego is called anatta, or non-self. The existence of self is erased. To reach to a point in life where the I does not exist. So bringing it back to our daily lives, how can we do that? So now what? We know so much about ego. We know the definition. We know what the psychologists say about it. We know what the acronym means. So now what? How do we bring this awareness of ego in ourselves? So step one, baby steps always, right? We take baby steps, we accomplish something. So step one is recognizing the I, recognizing our own ego. Simple things. You go to a social gathering. And now next time you're in a social gathering, you're going to think of me. You're going to think of this. You're having conversations with people, people asking how you're doing. Would you like something to drink? Would you like something to eat? Talking about the football game. Catch yourself. How many times did you ask someone, how are you doing? How many times did you feel the need to share what you've been doing, what you're doing at work? What did you do last weekend? Oh, I booked a trip. Oh, I'm going there. Right? I took the kids out for a soccer game, or I did this. How many of those conversations begin with I or me? Or how many of those conversations, interactions revolve around you? Self-analysis, taking a look, being your own mirror, right? It's not as easy as we think. It's easier said than done. And step two, so the next is, how many times have we practiced being humble? So same thing. You're at work, or you're with your children, or you're with your friends, wherever you may be. You're out in the mall, there's strangers all around. How many times do you catch yourself complimenting someone? Do you know how hard it is for humans to compliment someone else? I never thought that was a hard thing to do. But apparently it is. It's very hard for someone to compliment someone else, because you know what happens to the I, the ego? If I compliment someone else, am I letting them know that they look better than me today? Because we can't separate the I from our thoughts, from our actions, from our feelings, right? Small things start at home, right? Your family, your friends. Now, I'm not saying go to a party and be like, I'm complimenting everyone tonight, guys. You look good and you look good and I like your outfit. No, we're not. That's not what I mean, right? But it's something so simple. Admitting mistakes. Remember, something that we don't recognize, we cannot change. So if we don't recognize our own ego, we don't recognize our own thoughts, we cannot change those thoughts, right? We always tell the kids, if you can't admit your mistake, you can't fix your mistake. So admitting mistakes. Sometimes we walk by and we bump into someone like, why are you in my way? Instead of, I'm sorry, are you okay? Small things. But so quickly our mind goes, ah, that was in my way, or you're in my way, and so I bumped into you. Accepting people for who they are. And this is a very hard thing for us because we always feel the need to fix somebody without looking at what we need to fix in ourselves, right? You shouldn't do this way, do it this way. You're doing it wrong, right? It's so hard to accept someone the way they are. Remember, we all are on this journey of life. And we all have a different importance that we bring to life, to the table. We don't have the lens to see what someone else's journey is about or what their actions are instilled from. That is God. That's His job. But practicing these small moments of humility helps us feel a little bit more connected to the divine. That's great. We recognize our ego. Okay, we're going to make a decision that's it. Once we leave from here, we're going to start practicing a few things. But is that enough? Why are we here then? We could have read all this online. AI is great. Put a question in, it gives you this whole answer about it. No, there is a greater reason. You being here is evident that you are looking for spiritual growth, right? We all are looking for something greater than what the world outside has to offer. That's why we've taken shelter in a perfect master. That's why we were looking for that knowledge that is beyond the words in satsang, beyond books, beyond hymns, shabads, bhajans. We're looking for the true essence of ourselves. This is where meditation comes in place. So meditation helps us take a look at our own vices, this big umbrella of our vices. They sneak up so quietly, they're so subtle, but once that thought comes, we start pondering, we start watering, it starts growing. And before we know it, our ego is this big, right? So what does meditation do? Meditation helps us turn our vision inwards. Take a look at that self that you're so proud of. Let's take a look at that self, right? We focus on our breathing. We focus on the light. The deeper we get into meditation, we start to remove barriers between each other. We start to stop passing judgment about others. We start to see that God, that divine, that soul, that perfect soul in everyone around us. As we get even deeper in meditation, we get to a state where we don't see the difference between the supreme power and ourselves. Because He has made us in His own essence. We are created out of that light, and we will merge back into that light. So the practice of meditation helps us transcend the ego and stay connected and recognize the interconnectedness with the divine. I'm going to stop my thoughts here, but Sister Bhavya will further explain about how meditation can help us transcend our ego, how meditation will help us bring awareness to the I and eliminate the bouncing back between our morality and our desires and urges and impulses. Boliye Shri Satguru Maharaj ki,
Jai.
Sache Darbar ki.
Jai. Thank you, Sister Sonu. Yes, yes. Don't be shy. So, ego, a very tough topic, but something that is so embedded within us. From a very, very young age, not wanting to share your toys, bragging about your skills or how you did really good in your swimming meet, to looking for respect from your peers, from your employees, employers, wanting them to recognize your efforts and what you're doing. It's everywhere. And not just the ego, all the 5 vices. Desires, who doesn't have them? We're human beings, right? Anger, it creeps up every now and then, no matter how much you try and control it. And if we look back to the teachings of our saints, to the teachings of our scriptures, by no means do they say that you're not to have any desires. But their focus is always to turn us from the outside world to the inside world. So don't desire things that are perishable. Don't desire things that are short-lived. But build within you this desire to connect back with your truth. Build within you this desire to merge back with that supreme, to fulfill that desire that your soul came into this world with. So changing the direction of desire from outside to inside. Anger. When we think of anger and saints, we often think, oh, those two don't go together. But that's not right. When something is not rooted in truth, it should anger you. When you make decisions, you make choices that take you away from the path of truth, that should anger you. When you knowingly make decisions that take you away from your goal, that should anger you. And not anger to yell and scream or to let this out, but anger to self-reflect. Where am I falling short? These ideals we are been given by Sri Ashutosh Maharaj. Where am I falling short from following them? Greed. Saints have always said that disciples are greedy for one thing and one thing only. Any guesses? To see their Guru, to see this light that sits within, to stay connected to the lotus feet of their master, leading to the attachment we should have. Attach yourself to that one relationship that will fulfill their part not only in this lifetime, but for lifetimes to come. That relationship that's not bound to this physical body, but is bound to your soul. Building that attachment. An ego. this big barrier that constantly reminds us that I'm separate, I'm individual, I'm important, I'm independent. And if we go back to Mahabharat, Arjun, we all know, was terrified to fight this war. But on the constant coaxing of Lord Krishna, finally receiving Brahm Gyan, seeing this light within, he found the willpower, he found the strength, and picked up his weapons and fought this entire war against some great warriors. Warriors who were much, much more stronger, much, much more powerful, and more wiser than him. So naturally, at the end, Arjun thinks, wow, I won this war. But during this whole war, there was one person, Verberik, whose head was hung high, who watched the entire war. So Lord Krishna took Arjun to him and asks him, what did you see? Who fought the best? Who killed the most warriors? And Verberik says, all I saw was Krishna. No matter where I looked, all I saw was Krishna. No matter who it was his light that was everywhere. Maybe we're not fighting a war in the battlefield, but think of yourself. You know, you can have eyes but not be able to see. You can have ears but not be able to hear. You can have a mouth but not be able to speak. Who gives us the power to do all of these things? The Lord Himself. We provide for our families. Who gives us the power to do that? The Lord Himself. We eat great food. Who provides this food for us? The Lord Himself. And that's what gurus, saints, masters, time and time again reminded us that there is one way to overcome the ego, and that is to humble yourself in the lotus feet of a Satguru. When we sit in meditation, the awakening of the third eye acts as a mirror that shows our reflection as it is. So if you do self-analysis, you'll start to recognize, what are my weaknesses? What are my hindrances? What is preventing me from getting to my destination? And in that process of meditation, if you have even a few moments where you connect to that light completely, you will know that in those moments, you cease to exist. That is a little glimpse of the experience of our soul merging back with that Supreme Soul. And this constant sitting with God, this constant connection to the light reminds us over and over again that we are not this body, but our true self is that soul, that light that sits within. And it is that light that exists in everyone as well. But going back to the one solution, Guru Ram Das in the Sri Guru Granth Sahib says, Hoye nimani te pava pure Satgur pas. That I lower myself, I bow myself in the lotus feet of a Puran Satguru, a complete Guru. And I do this constantly over and over again to wash away the layers of the ego. We are often taught or hear as a child, pray, do prayers. But the reason prayer was given such importance was so that we, for a few moments, recognized the grace of God upon us. It was a form of gratitude to thank God for the roof, the food, the people, for everything in our lives. And it was always done kneeling down with your head bowed down. And the reason the head was bowed, because we release energy from our feet, but we receive from our forehead. And that's why the tradition of bowing in the feet of Guru was started. Because as we physically do this act, then internally as well, this ego will start to humble itself. As you constantly offer gratitude to God for everything in your life. When you wake up in the morning, thank God for a new day. Thank God for giving you breath. When you see the sun in the morning, thank God for the sun. Because if it wasn't for his light and his energy, we wouldn't survive. When you get in your car and go to school or go to work, thank God for this mean of transportation. Thank God for that food in front of you. Thank God for the people around you. This constant habit of gratitude, it has to become habit, will humble you little by little. Because like Jesus said, that a camel can go through the eye of a needle, but a rich man cannot enter the house of God. And by rich, he did not mean wealthy. He meant someone who has this self-ego, this self-sense of pride. So the only way to overcome this ego is to constantly bow yourself in the lotus feet of Guru, to constantly offer your gratitude over and over again, because that will train your mind to know and recognize that you are just a vessel, just a medium. And thank God for the opportunity to use you as a vessel to help the people around you. Ask Him to continue to use you and for you to continue to recognize that it is His grace and His power working through you. On that note, we'll conclude today's discourse.